Good evening. Today is June 4th, 2013. This is a meeting of the Revere City Council's Ways and Means Subcommittee. Before us tonight, we have two items. I will start off with item number 133, communication from the mayor relative to the transfer of funds from various accounts. I know we have our Director of Finance, George Anzoni, in the audience, and I just had a couple of questions. There were a number of transfers that are being proposed, and I think if you want to maybe go over the general idea of them, and then I can ask my questions. Or
right. What we do historically is we review all our accounts and make certain that we're not running deficits in any of them. And if we are running deficits, what we do is we try to find surpluses in other accounts and naturally transfer them to the account that is running maybe running a deficit. There's a full explanation here of why this letter that was transmitted by the mayor on why the surpluses existed, and then also the accounts that, and the reason the accounts would be running at the deficit. If you have any particular questions,
okay,
yeah, I'd be ready to answer those.
So my first question is about the transfer between veterans benefits and the solicitor outside legal services.
Okay.
And my question is only because we're talking about pay raises, and we're going to be talking about the budget. Right. It looks like, first, I guess my first question is, how much should we spend in outside legal services, do you know?
I don't have that in total. All right. The reason why this account is such a large transfer, we had to defend against a special circumstance, a case that happened at the police department, and we had special counsel in for that, and that's why that amount is as large as it is, and which the city eventually settled for, and that's it. But I don't have a total amount. I don't have the. If I knew that was going to ask, I would have brought the sheets up with me. But as far as that's concerned, we usually budget. Paul, what's in your budget for outside legal services? About 100,000? Yeah, around 100,000 for outside legal services. So this would be above and beyond that.
Okay.
So you're looking at 220.
So we spent 100, and then we spent another 89, because we're 89 negative, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then now we're going to spend another 120.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, and all I'm thinking, I put my budget hat on, and I started to think about. I know Paul is understaffed, and at what point does it become cost efficient to have so much outside legal service,
right.
where you could have, for that amount of money, we could have, you could have 3 or 4 people working full time for them, possibly. So that's just something that kind of pops in my head.
And that's something we should discuss during the budget hearing.
Yeah, and we could discuss that during budget. My other question was about the veterans benefits. Only because it looks like the original appropriation, so the veterans benefits are used in a couple of places.
Right.
But the original appropriation number is different, and so I didn't know why that would be. I wasn't sure if it was a different account or.
There are different. There's veteran benefits medical, and there's veteran benefits themselves. So there are 2 different accounts. Maybe the city audited. Let's see. What page are you looking for with the?
So there's the one with the veteran benefits to the outside legal services. Then there's one. It's from veteran benefits. It's also from the DPW rubbish disposal, right. from DPW street lighting. Mm-hmm. So if you look at that, the original appropriation is 1.5, and then on the outside legal services, the appropriation is 1.4. So I didn't know.
404.
Yeah.
That could be that looks like it's not a different account. That's the same account, but I think what happened there is there was a typo on that.
Okay. Okay.
But the funds still remain available.
And then my last question, on that veteran benefits with the DPW rubbish removal,
Right.
there's an amount for 62,000 for capital improvements. What are those for?
Okay.
Do you know?
Let me just get to it.
It's on the second page of the.
Second page. I am showing, I may not have in the same order as you, but I am showing my second page, from Water Source Enterprises to Water Source Enterprise Mass Water. And then, oh, here we are.
So
You're talking about
the last one.
the last page I'm talking about here. So you're talking the transfer from DPW, it starts with DPW street lighting, and then veterans benefits of 28,000?
Yep. There's a transfer to capital improvements for 62,000.
Let me take a look at that.
I was just wondering what those capital improvements were, if you knew, or.
That I don't have written down, but I can get that to you.
Okay.
Okay, exactly what the capital improvements were for. That, the department head would have submitted that, but I don't know exactly what those capital improvements he's looking at. And it's not explained in the letter. Okay.
Okay. I know a lot of times this process of cleaning up accounts kind of can get a little wary, especially during budget time. So,
Right.
you know, I don't have a problem with any of these. I just had some questions about them. So,
What I will do is I'll write you look at what those capital improvements were, and tomorrow I'll leave in your box the reasons for them. Okay?
okay.
Let me just mark that.
I'm going to open it up to members of the committee. Councillor Has.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George, veterans benefits, we're taking $120,000 out of that. Don't we normally have a deficit in that account every year?
We didn't this year because the type of claims that came in, didn't use up the appropriation as it has in the past. So,
This is a rarity that we
it's
end
a
up with
rarity, it actually is. This is
$120,000.
like the first time I remember in the number of years I've been here.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that after July 1st, that all of a sudden, all the claims
Don't start coming in.
start coming in.
Well,
and all-
that'll be appropriated though, that will be appropriated. I mean, nothing that, they may claim after July 1st, but, I mean, if there's a lot,
don't
it's
know.
a hard account to estimate because we don't know who's out there that is going to claim it. And then second of all is that if they come in after July 1st, it doesn't affect this year, it's going to affect next year's budget. So we're taking that into account in the budget. Do we want to lower that amount, or do we want to keep it somewhat at the same level? So I've been talking to the veteran benefits actually in Boston, and they've told us to keep it pretty much the same level.
Thank you. Also, looking at rubbish disposal, now we're transferring removal and disposal, $200,000 out of that account. Is that a direct relationship to recycling, or
Yes.
is it?
Yes, that's a direct relationship. More people are recycling.
And I think we should get more aggressive in recycling throughout the city, because it proves right there is a major savings by forcing people to recycle.
That's correct.
Right. The last question, which is on everyone's mind, when will the city council receive the budget? We normally get the budget the 15th of May every year.
Well, this year, two things have happened. One is we're working on a different type of budget. The budget document is going to be different. We're trying to make it more of a performance-based budget. We're working on that. We're working on that with the Collins Center at UMass. And the budget should be out either the end of this week or the beginning of next. Okay.
And the city council has how long to review it?
Well, till June 30th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is right around the corner.
Yeah, June 30th.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Has. Councillor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George, With that case in reference, and the outside legal service fees, we're asking for $120,000 transfer. With that case that we had regarding the police department, can't we bond the legal fees for that in addition to the legal settlement we made, rather than tax us this year for this particular money and use this money elsewhere?
Here's what we're looking at right now. Is first of all, we're asking the attorneys on the other side. I don't know, is this confidential? Is it something I can mention in open meeting, or is something that has to go into executive session? Because if it's ongoing, I can't discuss exactly what's in our plan, but however, the way we're looking to pay it is we're not
I thought we made an agreement that we settled.
We did settle. We settled for an amount, and they settled.
And they agreed.
And they agreed, but the way we're going to pay it is
So what could be ongoing?
Pardon me?
So what could be ongoing if we've
What's
already...
ongoing is whether or not, how we're going to pay it. So how we're going to pay it to them in the time period.
I thought we agreed $1 a week. Well,
We put that before them, but they didn't agree.
All right. Now, bearing that in mind, isn't that when, in fact, we do reach a final figure, can't we add that to our bonding?
We can bond.
Because I kind of think we could use that, I'm sure that's a greater portion of this 120,000.
Right.
When we can use these monies elsewhere and...
Well, the idea is on this monies, we're looking at especially this time of year, every day we look at the accounts and we make certain that when we look at the accounts that we're not going to run into a deficit or somebody has a surplus. We feel that after reviewing all the accounts and then estimating what we'll need in the future, all right, that we have enough in our budget to handle what we're looking at. So there should not be any deficits according to the estimates we're making. The reason we're taking it out of this now is so we don't have to bond it or do anything, because we don't know if we're going to bond it yet or not. So what you're saying is correct. You could roll the legal fees into the...
I would think it would make sense to do that. I mean,
we can do that.
You can put that over 20 years versus paying it for one lump sum.
Right, but then it's again, it's the interest that you're looking at. That's the other part of it.
Okay, in terms of the trash, we come up with that transfer, but now, are we getting monies for recycling?
We are receiving monies for recycling.
And is that reducing our trash?
That's reducing the amount of trash.
A line item with trash?
Right.
Well, now, will that be shown in our budget this year?
That'll be shown in your budget, yeah.
How much we're getting from the recycling portion?
What I will do is, that's not something that we budget for, but I can show you the receipts on that. And that's one of the things we're doing. In the new budget, you're going to see actual expenditures before you would see budgeted expenditures.
Right.
So, and this is what's taking the time, is that you would see budgeted expenditures and you wouldn't have a year-to-date. So what we're trying to do, the mayor has instructed us to do, is to give a budget that's much more useful to the people making the decisions. So before you would get a budget and you would get what was appropriated the year before and the difference and what's asked for by the department of this year and what is requested by the department of this year and what was recommended by the mayor, and then you see that difference. That's all you get on your budget. But in the meantime, you would need, well, what's the year-to-date figure? How much is being used of that percentage of the budget now? You're getting that on the same page now, so you don't have to go look at that and cross-reference that. Also, for the last 2 years, what were the actual expenditures in that account? So you can look at and say, okay, the actual expenditures in the accounts were, say, X, Y, and Z. You know, you can make a decision on that. So that's something we're trying to do, to put before the council. But it's only the first step now, because we're going more into a performance-based management budget, and then we need the second and third year to really make it work. So that's what we're trying to give you in front of the council. But if you do want to see the amounts that on recycling, I can put that in, because you don't show receivables. Well, that's something. That's something, though.
Yeah, we made such an impact with our community in asking them. We reached out to them, and now I believe, as you go up and down our streets, that almost every household is recycling.
That's right.
So it's going to be a tremendous improvement over the past several years when we had those little green buckets that hardly anyone was using them correctly.
Right.
So, but I do see these brown
Containers, right.
trash containers
Right.
out there, and they seem like they're out there in front of every household.
Right.
So it's got to be a financial impact with us.
Right. So I
And
can get that for you.
That's good. That's a great thing for
That's
our
a great
community.
thing. Actually, at the same time, when I put that in your box in the letter tomorrow, I'll also put in your box, and you can distribute to the councils here, what Councilor Donasso has requested, and see what we're getting back on recycling. Okay?
Excellent.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Arrigo. A basic question, George. Budget last year was about approximately 142 million.
146, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Where do you see the basic budget this year? I know it's going to be increased.
Well, the basic budget, I don't know how high it's going up as yet. The final cuts haven't been made, but we have the right to go up, I think, about according to Proposition 2.5, if new growth stays the same as last year and doesn't increase, probably about another 2.2 million higher. And then the school department in total budget went up some 2.5 million, but they got that in local aid. So you're talking maybe about $4 or $5 million increase, $5 million increase.
Probably about 150 million.
150 million between there and 152, somewhere around there.
And how much have we gained? The city has gained, as far as grant money.
As far as grant money, well, it depends what department you're talking about. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I will tell you is that we have the same grant money that we had last year in a lot of cases. One of the grants in the fire department is the SAFER grant is running out in the end of September 25th, I believe, was a 2-year grant for 10 firemen. On the other hand, we've applied for, as far as personnel is concerned,
Right.
we've applied for a grant for the police department, or the police department has applied for that grant, and I believe it's for 5 policemen, so we're waiting to hear about that, police officers. So as far as the total amount of grant money, I don't have that. I actually have requested from the departments this year in submission of the budget that they tell me the grant money and when it's going to run out and give me a timeline on that. But I don't have a total amount. But I think we're doing well, if not better, than we did in the past.
We are going to have an increase in police officers.
Well, we don't know that yet.
How many more police officers think we
I don't
gain?
know.
Councilor Correggio, I would ask that we keep our conversation to the transfers and to what we're talking about on the agenda.
Yeah, one question in
But
there.
we'll be discussing the budget at length when we get it. So
All right,
thank
I
you.
just have one question in this area, the 22,787 gateway cities. Can you explain that? Gateway cities, $22,787.
Where is that? What page is that on? I know I sent
Back
these up, but
page.
way in the back.
Yes, second item.
Gateway cities. I don't find it there, Jack. Can you tell me? Council, I don't seem to find it. Could you tell me
It's on
exactly?
the back of the,
The back page.
the-
Well, I don't know if my page is the same as yours.
yeah. I could check out further what you,
All right, you can check
with
on that
that item.
afterwards, but I just don't find it right here,
Yeah.
Counselor. Is it under the police department transfers? No, it's not on the veterans benefits and solicitors. And then I don't have
I
anything.
think
on the
Councilor Correggio is looking at the transfer of accounts that we got in our packet.
Oh, I
that's
see.
what I'm looking at, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, okay.
But I just wanted that question answered. I want to know what that was for.
well, maybe George can provide that.
I'll part of an answer to that, but I don't know what the question is yet. I'm not clear on that, as far as what is he looking for? Counsel, what are you looking for as far as the information? In fact, you know what, after the meeting...
I can check with you further.
Okay, stop in
after-
my office tomorrow, and we'll take a look at it.
Right.
And I also, once I get his question, Councilor Arrigo, I'll put that in your box tomorrow, too. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Ganasso opened this up, so I just have one comment I'd like to make and one question. previous year's budget, it showed the total appropriation for the prior year.
Right.
And everything was sort of lumped into that. And I know I've requested over the past several years to see a budget that had each line item with the previous year's appropriation for that line item, for whether it be for equipment or mops and brooms or a person's salary. Is that going to be done this year?
I'm trying to think. You wanted the budgeted figure. We're not talking about budgeted figures. Instead of the budgeted figure this year, you're going to get the actual figure, which you're going to see the actual expenditures. For
Line item by line item. Am I
line
correct?
item by line item.
Okay.
Which is something that, actually, going back to Councilor Calola, that was who requested that.
I also requested it, sir.
No, I'm not doubting you, but I remember how many years that's gone by, and that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to get it to this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers, and I do want to mention, just as we're talking about the budget, I do look forward to taking a look at some of the prior year actuals and some of the things that I know you guys are working on.
Okay.
It sounds really exciting. It sounds like we're getting to a point where we're going to be budgeting like a lot of other cities do, and we can start to,
Right.
dig into the numbers a little bit. So.
What we're trying to do is my plan is to, there's a GFOA, which is the Government Finance Office of America, and they have a certified budget format. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I do think that in the next 2 or 3 years, the mayor has instructed me to see if that we can get that certificate. And there's other cities and towns that have done it, and I think we can work on it and get it done, especially with the great assistance from the Collins Center at UMass Boston.
Yeah, it will take a couple of years, but I think it'll be well worth it when we get through, a couple of years, and then you can start to see trends, and you can, and the mayor can really make strong decisions on data, based on data, instead of kind of winging it a little bit.
Right.
So.
But we're doing it with CityStat in conjunction with CityStat, and we've been working on that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to say anything?
Are there any more questions?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. The only thing that I want to say with respect to the transfers, and I hopefully George has answered most of the questions. What he hasn't been able to answer, he'll get that information to you. Some of the things, like I heard the question about, well, what's capital, improvements. I mean, sometimes, like as an example, there was some traffic signalization, a situation that's been bothering me for a long time right at Central Ave and Broadway. So we had to come up with $7,500. I know they took that out of the capital improvement account to do it. It wasn't originally budgeted for, which quite honestly I wanted it budgeted for last year.
Yep.
They didn't do it. I said, I'm not going to wait another year to have this done. I wanted that left turn signal to kind of move traffic along Broadway. So I know that's just an example of where I think some of this money came.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be not just one particular thing that caused money to come out of the capital improvement budget that created that shortfall. But hopefully he'll be able to answer that to your satisfaction. As far as the budget coming out late, we're trying to get, and you just mentioned it, Mr. Chairman, that to transfer from the budget that this city has used, I know as long as I've been on the city council, to what we're going to be presenting to you within the next week or so is completely different. And it does take work, and we've been working at it. It's not as though we've just been sitting, thinking about it we've been talking about this budget since January. So, believe me, we're going with it as fast as we can, and everybody in the whole entire finance department is working not just 9 to 5 on this. What Councilor Powers said about a breakdown of brooms and shovels, I don't know that we're going to get exactly that specific about, we've got 22 brooms. I understand, I think I know where he's coming from. Everything everything will be listed in a line item, but it's going to be within reason. There's only so much data that we can give. Whatever we have, we're going to give to you. But, it's going to have to be, within what I think any reasonable budget that you would pull up online would include. Yeah. So that's been my goal. I know we've all been asking for information. It's hard when you're sitting up here with last year's budget book, this year's budget book. You've got your year-to-date figures and another group of papers. That's always been a pain in the neck. So we're trying to put all that in one budget so that you have last year's budgeted, this year's budgeted, actual year-to-date, actual budgeted, actual what was spent in last year's budget. So you can see that. The last thing that I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the legal fees, is that something that is going to change. I mean, this year we had to fight an extremely difficult case, unfortunately, that I inherited, that we wound up making that large settlement on. And that required a significant amount of outside legal fees that, you know, you hope you don't have to spend. But when you do have cases like that, oftentimes you do look to a firm, an outside firm, that would have an expertise, or at least what we would perceive and understand to be an expertise in a certain situation. So, and that's something that the solicitor has always had at his disposal, and quite honestly, he'll have to continue to have that for us to defend ourselves in any future cases that may come along. I mean, hopefully, you know, we won't have to use them that often, you know, but you know, that happened to be the case this year. So anyway, I just thought, just listening to some of the questions and some of the you know, concerns that the council had, I just wanted to respond to those, and I'm sure there'll be others. So, and while I'm up here, if anyone has a question, I'll be happy to answer it.
Councillor Hess.
Thank you. You know, as far as the lateness of the budget, and I speak for most of the councilors, all it would have taken would be a communication email from someone within the city to tell us what was really going on. We knew you were working diligently with it, but now it's the 5th of June, and I appreciate you coming up now, but someone should have sent a communication to the council. Now, on another issue, we talk about how you're going to pay for this, and I mentioned it when it was first brought up by you and Ira Zalesnik, okay? Let's not forget free cash. We don't want to strap ourselves, we don't want to spend it all, but that's a great opportunity.
I haven't forgotten about free cash at all, and all options are on the table right now.
They should be.
And I think we're trying to negotiate what the best financial option is for the city.
Right.
We agreed on an amount, now we're trying to figure how we're going to pay it, and so, you know, that could be something that I very well could be before the council asking for an appropriation, but we're just kind of, we're still in that negotiation phase right now to see what makes the most sense. So,
Thank you.
But your point's well taken.
Thank you, Councillor Hess. Councillor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, just, I didn't get to talk about the transfers, but, you know, I am concerned about the $150,000 you're taking out of the veterans budget from $1.4 million, and I know 150,000 out of that doesn't seem like a lot, but, and I know there have been reductions, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that our veterans that are getting paid by this city for their medical benefits and whatever is due to them,
Right.
that they are not shortchanged, and we have to come in with a transfer or some kind of supplemental after the 1st of July. That's number one.
Right.
Okay. Number two, Mr. Mayor, I know I talked to you this afternoon about the budget and the timing, and, you know, I know Councillor Hass was talking about it, but, you know, I just feel, I don't want to use the word stressed, but, you know, put in a position where here it is, like it was said, June 5th.
Right.
And we won't get it until, say, June 10th. And we only have 2 weeks to go over that budget. Now, it's a new budget for you guys that you worked up, that you've been working on since January. And now we only have 2 weeks to really review it and be able to absorb it ourselves, which honestly, and again, with all due respect, is not fair to us. You know, I think you should have put the effort into it, and honestly, I will make a motion that we make an ordinance that you have to have it to us next year by May 15th, so we can really study it and look at it. You know, the pressure shouldn't be on us.
Well,
You know,
can I respond to
review-
those
to
2
review
points?
it.
One is about
Absolutely.
veterans.
Thank you.
The veterans, we've made certain, we made our estimates, and we made them conservatively, that by the end of the year, there will be enough for, it's our belief there will be enough to pay our veterans. I mean, the concern of the veterans is utmost in all of our minds, and that we made certain that would happen. The other point about the lateness of the budget, I understand where you say it is late and so on and so forth, but a lot of the numbers didn't come in. We had numbers from the MWRA that we were still waiting for before we set the budget and set the water rate. They're late this year. Then the back and forth with what's happened with the cherry sheet, and although they've issued a cherry sheet, but they haven't settled on what the cherry sheet's going to be, so we're using our estimate on that. So we're trying to get all this done, and we are working on it, and we understand that there's a short period of time for you to review it, but at the same time and changing the format was that getting all the information together. So it took probably twice the amount of time this year, or 3 times the amount of time this year to prepare the budget, and the departments that are involved, and myself and the city auditors and the various department heads, because we asked them to give us a different type of budget back, and we had to then first train them to do that, then we had to train them to get the information that we want back the way we needed it, so that it'd be useful to us in the format of the budget that we sent, and all on the line. So everything was new, even the way we requested the one. And we started in January. So we've been working. I mean, let the council know that we've been working, and the department heads have been working, the mayor has been working. We've all been working on this budget, and we're trying to get you a more usable format. I think next year the process will be a little easier because we have the steps down for what we need, and I think we can do that. I think we can do it a little easier next year, but again, May 15th is a bit earlier. However, it hasn't always been May 15th. It has been in June before in previous administrations. I look back to I believe the year before last, and it was June 1st, somewhere around there, that the budget was submitted. So I have the budget letter. So looking at that is that we're trying to do it. We're not holding away from the council, because I just want to make certain the council has the information in front of it that it needs, and that's the purpose of doing it, so that you people are much more informed on before you make the decision on what the information is. And I think that'll work. I think that'll work. In fact, we're going the same way that, as I said, the same steps going with the what they call the GFOA, which is the Finance Officers of America way of doing it. So we're following that format. And we're also, again, looking for getting a certification eventually for the budget, which may take 3 or 4 years. But any city and town that's done this turnaround like this has also always had, it's been something that they've always had to do. So, and it's been causing some late budgets in some areas. But
with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, you know, in a case like this, in a situation, I don't care about other cities and towns.
I'm not saying other cities and towns.
I don't, you know, and there's been plenty of times that we've put a budget together where we've estimated, and as we've gone along, by the time the other end of the budget comes, that we've adjusted it as we went along, but at least we had something to look at. And to be able to understand.
Councillor, you know, if you, look, you can submit an ordinance change. We're always going to try to get the budget to you as soon as we have it. I mean, there's no net gain for us to sit on it and intentionally deliver it to you late. You know, we're trying to come up. We're standing here before you telling you that we want to give you a budget that's going to give you more information on it than you've ever seen before. We're doing this because I sat on that other side less than 2 years ago and understand what you guys are looking for. Now we're trying to do it, and we're being chastised because we're doing it. I mean, you know, listen, if you want the same old budget from last year, we could have had that 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. We're trying to do it right for you guys. I'm sorry I'm not giving you as much time this year as you would like, but, you know, I mean, I thought the goal here was to get it right, you know, and if you want us to go back to the old budget, I will, but we need some sort of a transition period, some sort of leeway that gives us that opportunity to improve upon what we're doing. Well, this isn't intentional, Councillor. I feel like you're taking a slap at us for trying to do things that are going to make it better for the city councilors to look at. I don't think that's very fair, to be honest with you.
Mr. Mayor, how do you expect us to absorb what you're going through in 6 months for us?
Because you're going to have all the information at your fingertips.
I let you speak, Mr. Mayor.
No, you didn't.
With all due respect. You know, how do you expect us to go through what you've gone through in 6 months for us to go through that in 2 weeks?
Well,
honestly, you know, there's 11 of us up here.
Because
And
we
when
get,
it's something new
because
to
we're
us,
putting the numbers together, you're
it's some-
reviewing them, you're
it's
looking
something,
at them.
but how do
We
we
have
know
to
what it
assemble
is?
those numbers. Those numbers just
how do
don't
we know
drop
how it is,
themselves on a
Mr.
sheet
Mayor?
of paper.
You know,
You're gonna
it's-
have it all at your disposal, and that's why it's taken us so long, so we have all these numbers. You can sit there and criticize us, I'll take the criticism.
You know,
Though
and-
our entire finance team will take the criticism, okay?
Mr.
We
Mayor,
apologize.
I don't want, you know. listen,
A big mea
Mr.
culpa,
Mayor,
we're very
I'm not
sorry.
looking for you to take that, you know, the guilt attitude that
Well,
it's
I'm-
us.
you know,
I
I
don't
mean,
want you
like,
to do that.
well,
But I'm just saying,
well,
it's not fair to us, who are city
No
leaders
good
like
deed
you
goes
are.
unpunished, as they say, you know, we
Mr.
try
Mayor,
to
don't-
present,
Mr.
we
Mayor,
try to
please
present
don't take it that way.
a very good
Mr.
budget
Mayor,
for you
I'm
guys,
repeating
and,
myself. Don't take it that way.
Wow.
It's just unfair to us, who are also elected like you are.
yeah,
Okay, which you are in
Understood.
4 years and we are in 2 years. And for us to
Understood.
be able to absorb that in 2 weeks, I'm just trying to make a point.
This-
That's
well,
all.
look-
And I'm not looking for an old budget.
Look-
If there's something new, I want to see it. You know I'm the communicator.
yeah. Listen,
So-
no one, you know, I feel like oftentimes, you know, and it's like the complete opposite. We put out a monthly newsletter to try to keep you guys as informed as we possibly can about everything going on in the city.
Which I
don't
love.
remember seeing that come across my desk 18 months ago, but yet I put it out to anyone in the city who wants it. We try and be as
Outstanding,
forthcoming
Mr. Mayor.
and open about everything we do, and yet everything I hear is about how we try to circumvent or somehow hide things. It gets frustrating after a while. And listen, I want to work with each and every one of you, but I can't come up here every single time and be accused of either holding back information or hiding information or not being, you know, you submitted this late. I mean, I was criticized of putting a late communication in that just asked for a public hearing. I mean, what do I need? I mean, you know, look, then in your rules, say we won't accept late communications and we won't send them anymore. But if you're going to accept late communications and I'm following the rules and then I get criticized, that's unfair. And, you know, we try to do things. I have an open door down there. Any councilor that ever comes down there to see me, I am always there to talk to you. But, you know, it gets frustrating when you don't hear it until you either get the TVs on over here or you read it in the newspaper, or, you know, it just gets frustrating. And, you know, I'm going to continue, regardless of the criticism or the coffee shop conversation, to be as open and honest and forthcoming as I possibly can, because that is the way my administration runs. Every one of these department heads that will ever sit here will tell you that's the instruction they have from me. And so just the notion that we're trying to delay or trying to hold back is very, very offensive. And, you know, I'm sorry, that's just the way that I take it. And, you know, we're trying to put a budget. I mean, George Anzoni and his staff have been working, you know, Laurie Giardella, working crazy, trying to get, because I sat down with them months ago to say, this is the information that I want the council to have. Because I thought, I was expecting a pat on the back, you know, quite honestly. And now I come up and I find out that I'm getting criticism for it. So, nonetheless, as soon as we can possibly have the budget, we are going to have it, and you will have it. It does no good in my hands. You guys have to approve it. So as soon as I have it, you're going to have it. And if you ever have any questions or information, I mean, yeah, you know, sometimes maybe there's things that maybe sometimes I think to myself, geez, maybe I should have called the council and told them this, or sent a memo to Ashley so she can relay it. It doesn't always happen. And so, you know, but it's not for the fact that we're not working tirelessly for this city council and for the taxpayers of this city, because that's what we do each and every day. All right, so I'll just end it there. Anybody else has anything?
On that, I do want to mention, you know, as somebody who's spent the better part of his career working on budgets, I do have a soft spot for the position that you guys are in, because and I have had conversations with your office. I've talked to Miles, and he said we're putting org charts together, we're putting mission statements together, we're putting a lot of things together that are a little different, and it's taken a little bit of time. And I can appreciate that, and I look forward to, you know, I'll commend you on taking that step and having the, you know, foresight to try and change the budget, because it has been, you know, in the past a little difficult to read. And, you know, I know, having been on that side of putting a budget together, how difficult it can be and how time is of the essence, and you end up spending a lot of long hours during budget time, and there's a difficulty in producing a document that ends up being pretty vital to the way that a city's run. So there's no criticism coming from the chair. I can kind of appreciate where you're coming from. Councillor Giannino.
Thank you. With all due respect to everyone who spoke tonight, as a voting member of this subcommittee, the two items on the agenda are relative to one to something completely different, and one to a budget that was already voted on last year. So we're not talking about next year's thing, and I think it was kind of wrong for it to be taken off track to be talking about next year's budget because we're not there yet. So if we're not there yet, we can't talk about it. But I am here to talk about this transfer for the budget that was already voted on last year. So I think that for the remainder of the meeting, I'd really appreciate it if we could keep it onto these two items on our agenda, so this subcommittee that I need to be able to make an informed decision and vote on, I have the information that I need, because I don't feel comfortable voting this out favorably or unfavorably or keeping it in committee if we're not talking about what we need to be talking about. So on that note, I'm just curious if there are any other questions about these transfers. The one thing that Ira did talk about was, will veterans be affected in July if their paperwork isn't in yet? So as to that, I'm just curious, will they be affected, or is that all set?
No, I mean, we would not recommend this transfer, Councillor, if we thought that the veterans would be adversely affected. I mean, I think everybody here knows, and we all share that same belief and desire to take care of our veterans. So that's something that this city has a long-standing tradition in honoring. So we would never transfer any funds out of the Veterans Affairs Department unless we were very, very confident. Now, keep in mind, and I'm sure Councillor Hass would tell you, and Councillor Guanasso, and actually every other councillor up here that has at least worked on a budget would tell you it's not a perfect document. It's you budget for what you think you're going to have, and it kind of works the same way. We have a little more educated guess when we start talking about transfers at the end of the year, seeing what the pattern has been and what our expectations are, in this case for claims going up toward the end of the year. We feel confident that based on the information that we have, that those transfers are pretty solid. Otherwise, we would not present them to you.
Great. So as long as all of the parties that will be affected by this transfer are all set, I feel comfortable with this item on our agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
There's a motion to approve the transfers. All in favor? All opposed? So we will vote these out favorably to the full committee. And Councilor Giannino, Madam Vice President, your comments are very well taken by the chair. Don't be sorry. Our next item on the agenda is 13-122, an ordinance relative to certain persons not represented under MGL Chapter 150B E, Section 10. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this individually amongst all of us, and I know that there's a general sense within the City Council that some of these proposed salary increases, whether this was the wrong time to be presenting them, or they weren't warranted, or they weren't justified. As I told each and every one of you, that has to be a decision that all of you have had to make. I know that one of them that was within the Section 2 of that ordinance change that I'm looking to do, the Finance Director has, I guess for the sake of, not having, any type of contentiousness between the administration and the City Council, has graciously withdrew any effort on my behalf to increase that salary. So really what we're dealing with at this point, and I think I explained to you that Superintendent of Public Works is under, he's under collective bargaining. So that's going to have to be a whole separate issue in and of itself. So really all we're left with is the city clerk and the city solicitor. going forward right now in terms of, these increases that I'm proposing. And as I say, I stand here as I did during the public hearing, as a proponent. And I guess if you had any questions, I would be willing to answer them. I'll say up front, because I have had a strong sense that this conversation was not going down a path that I had thought that it would. I don't really have any documentation here before me, but if there is an appetite amongst councilors that are on the committee or the councilors as a whole to increase one or some of the individuals that I have put forward for your consideration, I would be happy to provide you with that. I did not bring it up with me because of that.
Okay.
But I'll open it. I'll ask you, Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No problem, Mr. Mayor.
Little memory lapse.
I'm going to make a couple of comments and then I'll open it up to everybody.
Okay.
But I will say that I don't plan, because we don't have anything. I've done my own little bit of research, and I know I've gotten some information from folks, but I would like to see after, and I think through talking to folks, that we hold off, at least for now, on doing anything. What I will say is that you're the mayor. You have the right to decide whether or not people want, deserve a raise, and I think that is, an important part of being an executive and being a manager is, compensation for the folks who work for you. So you have a good sense of who deserves a raise and who doesn't. I also, I think this begs a bigger question about salaries for everybody, and the fact that we have department heads who are union members. There's a bigger discussion to be had about
Absolutely.
stipends and base pay and total pay, and there's a lot to this, right? So unwinding this is a little bit difficult. But there were a couple of statements made by members of the council about the fact that there hadn't been raises for folks before, and having looked back, it looks like people have gotten raises. So I think the statement of, or the argument that people haven't gotten a raise in so many years is false. So I just want to clarify that. With that said, I do, have a very strong feeling that you are the executive. We're a board of directors. Our job is to, if you have a recommendation, we look at it, we vet it, we look at all the information, and we make a decision. It would be it would be good if, for me as the chairman of the committee, if we did have some information. Councillor Novoselsky passed me some information. I don't know if this was produced by your office, but I think there's a lot more information that I'd like to see, and on the ordinance change itself, I think the idea of retro pay is a little bit, I don't know if I have the appetite for that. I think that folks have a salary, you know what your salary is going in. If we can make everybody's salary, or if we can make non-union salaries a salary, no stipends, no retro, you know what it is, you have the requirements for the job, and you're doing a good job, and you're working at the will of the mayor. I don't think that we need to have longevity and education incentives, and the education incentives should be built as a requirement for the job. And if we're looking for somebody who's worth 150, 170, whatever the amount is that the mayor determines, then that's it, And I don't think that there should be. I think part of the problem is the transparency of folks' salaries, where you have pockets of money that people get. But that's a whole. I think that's a discussion for maybe another day in the future. And I think we're on the same page as far as You know,
There's everybody, whether it's, I don't think there's a paid employee in this city that receives a check that does not have some sort of things that people ultimately are going to complain about at the end of the day. I know there are many things that people can complain, the longevity that people get, there's different categories of payments that people, I mean, this was kind of a lot of this, coming in, 12 years ago to look at a city budget. I was just like you were, looking at these stipends and different things that people get paid for through the collective bargaining process is incredible. I mean, it really, after a while, you run out of things to stipend people on. I mean, there's nothing else left. There's stipend for this, stipend for that. And I'm not sure how that all started and why it all started, but it's not unique to Revere. I mean, it's throughout municipal and state government. And I mean, with respect to, I mean, someone may have got a raise because they took a longevity bump or some other particular item kicked in to give that raise. What this was doing was just taking the base salary and adjusting that. But like you say, I mean, we can talk about that. I know there was some specific things in there that the council didn't like after talking to people individually. But I mean, I think when you look at, I mean, I'm just going to take as an example, just because he's here, our city solicitor, Paul Capizzi. And you look, and you just, I mean, you don't have to look very far to surrounding cities and towns and see what, I mean, what does a lawyer make? I mean, he works his tail off. And, in fairness to Mayor Ambrosino was an attorney, I'm not. So, he thanks me every day because he gets to work on something that he hasn't had to work on before, because it's not something that I can work on. I'm working on things that probably Mayor Ambrosino didn't work on, so, but as a result, his workload has just probably doubled. So, that's just one example.
Right.
And so, if you want to hold this in committee, or if there are specific things that you want us to provide, maybe that would work. If you sent me some sort of communication that said, before we're ready to vote on this, please send us X, Y, and Z, then that will give us more of a feel for what you're looking for, so you can make a more informed decision.
I think that would be good, and I look forward to being able to do that. With that, I'm going to open it up to members of the committee. Councillor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't envy the situation you're in. No, I do. I envy the situation we're in. We're in a position where we're talking about individuals that we've known for years, that we've worked with for years, and it's a very, very difficult task to say to somebody, no, we can't give you this, or we can't do this. But in talking to one of the individuals that were mentioned there, he was gracious enough to speak with me last night and tell me his position on it. And again, he showed a class act in what he did, and I told him that. And having said that, I have the experience of working with the city clerk on a day-to-day basis, and we have acquired a friendship, and we're in a position here that's not enviable one. It's not one I've ever wanted to be in. But I would be very, very totally remiss if I wouldn't suggest to you and to the city council that the city solicitor is well underpaid. I mean, I don't think I spoke to an individual outside the residents were concerned about the large increase in raises. There wasn't one individual who said to me that they thought the city solicitor was being paid fairly. And, he's an attorney. He's an attorney making X number of dollars, and I compared his salary to what she's making to others in the community, and he's well below. He's making less than some sergeants on the police force. Not taking away from any position, but this individual has a degree that calls him an attorney, and it gives him a certain level of compensation. And compensatory to that, I don't think he's making enough. And in that position, I think it's warranted for more money. As far as the city clerk, she came on a couple of years ago, and she's an unbelievable job she's doing for us. But she knew at the time, and she's still a work in process. She's still working at it and doing an incredible job. Given the years of service And of course, I spoke to the, obviously, the other person is the treasurer, and I know all of the assignments you have given him. He's taken each and every one of them and done the best of his ability for them. And he's made his decision, which I was thankful for, because it didn't put us in any situation. But I just ask you, and I ask my colleagues, to please consider the city solicitor's salary range. And I think that that is warranted of our concern in our bringing to task to bring it up to a level that's at least compatible to a town that has 51,000 people in it, and and it works full-time. See, some of these inquiries we made of these individuals, you don't know how much time they put in. We know how much time Paul Capizzi puts in, and we know that he was dedicated to what he's been doing, and he never comes up here pouting and moaning about salary or money of that nature. And this, it makes it easy to ask for money for him. I really feel that. And I don't know what the rest of the council feels, and I know how some of them feel because we've been talking, and I know how some of the population has been talking. And so I think it would be a favorable thing to do, and not only favorable, it would be the right thing to do. To upgrade the city solicitor's position to the level of capacity, the years put in, and the capacity of work he does. And again, compensatory time, that's money that any attorney makes. You know, kids coming out of law school, for God's sakes, in the second year in practice is making more than that. So I just think that I offer that out to my colleagues, and I know I'll be in line to make a motion when we agree finally of some sort to increase this financially in this position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. Councilor Has.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back when I basically left the office of mayor, what was happening there, they was talking about educational incentives and all these things. You know, longevity was already built in. So what happened was they passed the education incentive, and that's a couple $100,000 per year. And I was always opposed to it as mayor. It was presented to me, but again, it was passed by the then city council. So you have to accept what they did, all right? When you look at salary, and then you add longevity onto it, then you add on educational incentive, which could be 10%, 15, or 20% of your salary. So if you're talking, Mr. Mayor, that we're going to bring someone up to, use George, $150,000. In effect, it's $150,000 plus longevity for all the years he's been with the city, plus its educational incentive, you know, long as they can submit a certified degree, okay, you're well up to 170 thereabouts. So when this first came about, I was the one that made the comment. I couldn't believe this come up as late communication. Because something of this magnitude, we are on an election. We've got an election in 3 or 4 months here. To put this before us at that point in time, and I understand what you said, you just wanted to have a public hearing. I thought the timing was poor, not that it would have affected my decision, because I voted no in the past, all right? I think it put the councilors, a lot of councilors, right in the spot as far as bringing this up. Now, I have spoken to the individuals. I spoke to Paul, and I made discussion with the councilors. I would recommend during the budget deliberations that the mayor increase his salary, okay? To put it back in your lap, and you can make that decision.
If I could just say this, right? And again, this is my first time around.
I
So
understand
I'm not going to be standing here, 3.5 years from now saying this, but realistically, we just negotiated these contracts, so I looked at the people that weren't covered under collective bargaining, thought they deserved a raise, was told that I had to submit this ordinance change. If I could have just put it in the budget and put it up before you, that's probably the way that I would have done it. I didn't have to go through this whole, I didn't want to go through this whole public hearing
Whoever
process,
advised you,
if I didn't think I had to.
whoever advised you was not sure of the system. Okay,
Yeah.
if we want to take care of you, Mr. Mayor, you submit your budget for 110, whatever it may be, all right? Someone will make a motion that we increase your pay, and that's what they did in 2000. They gave educational incentive, they increased the mayor's salary from 80 to, I forget what the number, 110, plus education, et cetera. So that brings it up dramatically. So when they're coming out with some of these increases here, I spoke to George, I've spoke to the individuals involved. You made the comment at the last meeting that they haven't had a pay raise in 10 years. They get a 2% raise every year.
Right.
Okay, now if you're making 100 grand, that's $2,000. Whereas the average worker down at DPW, okay, gets 2% of whatever they're making. All right? Granted, the city financial officer has more duties, without question. When I combine both of those jobs in the 80s, treasurer and collector after Mr. Carlo deceased, all right, we saved, combining those jobs, $50,000. It's great for the city, okay? George took on additional tasks, compensated, okay? So when you see something like this coming in, you're saying, well, wait a second. Then you hear it from the rank and file. City Hall, okay, they just got a 2%. You hear from DPW, and then you hear it from the fire and police department. Where's all this money coming from? And we get elected, as you do, every 4 years now. We get elected every 2 years. We just want to be fair to everybody. Right? But there were a lot of misstatements that were made, okay? I'm not sure if you realize they get 2%.
No, what I was referring to was their base. You're talking about educational incentive. That all comes off their base.
Right.
What I was talking about was
to the
increasing
base.
their
Added
base
to the
salary.
base. Added
No,
to the base.
No, but that is an ongoing. In other words, if there, like there's years where there's zero raises. There's been, so
Oh, yeah.
as you know, so that. But on a base salary, that's where I was looking to amend these salary ordinances. And as I say, it only applies to 4 people. So we're not talking about, we're not talking about 3. Well, there's finance director, solicitor,
Right.
and
I would,
those are the only 3? 3. Assistant solicitor, and yeah. So, there are some people that are not covered under collective bargaining, but not many.
Right.
And those are the only people that I brought up. I mean, these
they
weren't
get paid.
in the big picture. Listen, I understand what you're saying, Councillor. What you're saying to me is the signal it sends, right? I mean, at least that's the way I'm understanding it.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
but the signal is far different than the consequences. I mean, budgetarily, it's non-existent. It's you wouldn't.
Oh,
Wouldn't it's within the scope of the budget, it's nothing.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. When you're taking 4 people, you're saying a raise for this one, raise for that one. It's above and beyond the 2% that we negotiated with these unions. I understand that, and that's I can appreciate from the people who got the 2% raises how they feel too. So I understand.
I don't know if this is the proper time, Mr. Chairman, to make a motion that we deny this and take it up during the budget deliberations. When we will be with you, we'll be with George, we'll be with the affected people going over each individual department,
Well, I still would like to see some of the information that
We can get it for the budget.
that we've asked, and if we can get it through the budget. I don't know as far as actually being able to add to the budget. I know we don't have.
You can request.
We can
as a-
request
As a point of information.
Yes.
What you could do, if you wanted to increase any of these salaries, a council would make a motion, okay? I would like to give Peter X $5,000. It goes before the council. The council has to vote it up or down. If they vote it up, they forward it to the mayor for his approval. He can reject it. He can reject it or approve it. Because don't forget, you don't set the budget until next October, November, when you're closing out the year.
It was my understanding it required a public hearing. That's the reason that, we submitted it the way we did.
So, Mr. Mayor, you won't accept that then? I think that's the easiest way. Take it right off the table right now and address it when the mayor comes up with information pertaining to the people.
I am not certain if we require a public hearing or if it requires an ordinance change.
It doesn't require you changing the budget by making that recommendation. By making that recommendation, you are changing the city ordinance that says the mayor will get X amount of dollars, the council will get X amount of dollars. So
My-
by changing that, you need it.
My
Yes.
only other concern is that I would, and I don't know how we could do this, but I would like to see the salary be the salary and get rid of educational incentive, get rid of longevity, and if the salary is going to be the salary, we tie the salary then to the consumer price index in the ordinance, so that there is a cost of living effectively that goes forward.
I agree.
But we're not. It's a transparent way to show how much folks are making.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. We can discuss this.
If
but-
you can
and
control
my-
the council,
my-
if you control the council, Mr. Chairman, you can put anything through.
My only other comment
As they
is
did.
retro, and I made a statement about retro earlier that I don't
Forget it.
I don't
Absolutely.
necessarily agree with the retro payment, and I don't know if that's a sentiment that the full council has, but I think that's something that we would want to discuss if we were going to bring this back up during budget proposal. I'd want to make sure that we address the full issue. So, Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, I can understand your wanting to reward people
Does
that
it make sense? Maybe
have serving your administration to your expectations.
take care of that.
You said last week, no time is a good time to recommend pay raises for people. And I agree with you 100%. But I think this time is particularly a bad time, given the economy that we're climbing out of right now. You know, years back, the city solicitor was Bob Lombard, Richard Villioi, Bob Mara. They had outside practices. They did outside work. This gentleman here works full-time. He's been very valuable, I'm sure, to your administration and to myself as a city councilor to some extent. I think Councillor Ganasso makes a good point with regard to the solicitor. Everyone else, I feel, gets the 2%. Everyone does. I heard the secretary in the solicitor's office mention she gets a stipend as a paralegal. I mean, there's a point here where we have to, say, let's tighten our belt a little and let's wait. We know we hope there's mitigation, and I feel confident there is coming from Suffolk Downs. We hope there'll be new hotels built that'll give us that room excise tax. And I know you're working very hard on this. And we all appreciate that as city councilors and as taxpayers in this city. But I think you get to a point where you just have to draw the line. And no one's going to blame you for it. They can blame us for it. They can blame me if they want, okay? And I'll take the blame. But I'm sorry. I have people that live in my ward that don't even make the amounts of increases that some of these pay raises are. They don't even make that. Now, my understanding is, and correct me if I may be wrong, do the individuals involved get the 2%?
They do get the 2%.
Okay.
They get the longevity, just like everybody else does. They get the educational goes up to a maximum of 7.5. It's
10%, isn't it? It's 0.7 and then up to 10%?
no. Associate's degree is 2.5, right? Associate's degree is 2. I'm sorry, 3.5.
Associate's degree is 3.5. The bachelor's degree is 7.5, and above that, a master's degree is 10. Right. And that's what it is.
So, again, Mr. Mayor, I want to say tonight, publicly, and, I know this may create hard feelings between some people. It certainly, I'll accept that. But if we're looking to increase the city solicitor's salary, I can support that. And that's the only salary other than the 2% that I can support at this time. Maybe next year, the year after, will be better years. I certainly hope so. We're under a consent agreement now with regard to sewerage and drainage.
1 second. Yeah, if I could just speak to that, because you bring up an excellent point, actually. And these were some of the things, I don't want I don't want you, first off, let's start with this. You were saying, well, I'll accept responsibility for having to say no, whatever.
For my
the
vote,
case
I'll
is.
accept
No,
responsibility.
but I mean, listen, if this was something that I could have done on my own, by myself, without any council approval, then I would have gone forward, to quite honestly. And it would have been because of some of the things you said, like this consent decree. If I showed you some of the documents that we have to review, more specifically, for example, the DPW superintendent has to review and be cognizant of, the extra workload that this consent decree has brought onto him, above and beyond what he's had to do prior to this consent decree, is mind-boggling. It's almost like a second job. With respect to the finance director, when my predecessor took over, he was the collector-treasurer. Then he named him director of finance, which expanded his duties. I've kind of now in turn expanded his duties almost to like a COO type of position where, he's heading up the rec center now, this new 911 joint venture that involves computerization and cooperation between Winthrop and Revere. I've put him in charge of spearheading that. What that has to do with finance, I don't really know. But nonetheless, he was somebody that I thought could get the job done. I assigned it to him, and he's been working on that. We've had some, believe it or not, some economic development things, such as we'll be releasing it very shortly. It's a 5-minute spot that will be appearing on Fox and CNN that's called Today in America, that's hosted by Terry Bradshaw, that featured Revere as a great place to live, work, and play. I had George spearhead that effort, and he had to spend significant time on that. I only say that because, I've given them, the people that I've put up before you, I've given them, in many cases, additional duties above and beyond what they normally would have done. So I don't want you to think that I just went into it blindly and said, well, I just want to give money away. I mean, that's not how I operate, but I will always operate on the pretense of being fair, or under the guise of being fair. I mean, this is what, I believe in fairness. People should be compensated for what they're worth. Councillor Arrigo makes an excellent point. How this all got to this point, longevity, educational. I mean, educational came in because of the Quinn bill, I think. Police officers were receiving the Quinn bill. Municipal employees felt like, well, why are they getting more money for being police officers? We have degrees and we don't get compensated. So, so that I think is how the vote all got taken up here, and I was one of them that actually voted for it. And quite honestly, I was reluctant to vote for it at that time. But when you look at it and you see everybody else being compensated, then why should the municipal workforce?
Mr. Mayor, I fully understand that. If you recall, I sat beside you. You sat right here for 12 years. And I can honestly say, knowing you as I do, if some of these raises had come up before us at that point there, I can honestly say you would have been outraged, in my opinion, maybe, okay? And right now we've got close to $140 million in bonded debt outstanding. We've got high water rates, and I'm not blaming the water rates on you. We're going to be facing tax increases. It's got to stop someplace. The people that are retirees, that are living on fixed incomes and pensions, they deserve a break also. That's my comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Council Powers. Council President Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, it's not that I'm against anything that was put in here, other than this establishes an ordinance for a starting salary for anybody that may follow in the future. And I don't think that someone walking in the door should be making $150,000. I think they should be earning it. So that's my play. And at this point, yes, Councilor Haas is probably correct. If you want to give them raises in the budget, then it's up to us to look at it and see if it's legit. But in this case, the city solicitor is, without a doubt, the lowest paid for his type of work in this city. And I can see a lawyer walking in the door and making $82,000. I can see him making 86,000 walking in the door. If you want to get good people, you have to pay them. And for the base pay, which, you know, his is 72 now, okay? But that's not what I don't believe that's what the city ordinance is for a lawyer. I think it's a lot less, because he's gotten those raises over the year that hasn't changed the ordinance. But I wouldn't mind changing.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's the piece I'm looking at.
Yeah, right.
And you also, Council, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's to cut you off to mention a good point you made. We might want to consider a range of salaries, so a minimum and a maximum. So that could be something that we could look at maybe as well.
Right, and we had discussed that, you know, and I even discussed it with Paul and mentioned it to him, that that's something we could look at. But right now, you know, if I were to start someone walking in the door, 82 wouldn't be so bad, but like I said, I wouldn't mind 85 or 86. You know, and if we were to just establish, you know, for now, if that's the only one that we did, I wouldn't feel bad. You know, and God bless Ashley. She, you know, she's a great worker, but, you know, it was said before that, you know, she's kind of the new kid on the block, but she's doing a great job. But the question is, based on these numbers that I got from her study, from her city clerk organization, she's right where she belongs at the number of 51,000 people. You know, if we wanted to give her $99,000, we could. But that doesn't mean we have to establish the ordinance to set up a new city clerk to walking in the door at $99,000. So right now, if I were to vote for a city solicitor to come in at around 85 or so, give or take a few, where there's still 10% educational and there's longevity, I don't think that would be so bad as, you know, walking in the door. You know, but a new person wouldn't get longevity walking in the door.
Right.
You know, but they may get the educational incentive, which would put them up over 90 potential. So I can live with that, and I kind of disagree with Bob as far as Councillor asked, is shutting it all down now. I think we ought to act on at least this one and put it on the books of where somebody would start as far as the city solicitor. We can deal with, you know, with the director of finance and those other titles and the city clerk at a later time. But right now, I think the city solicitor should be acted upon as soon as possible. I know the chairman wants to get some numbers together. That's fine. If we want to put a step rate type thing over the next couple of years, that's fine too. But at least the starting salary for an attorney for the city of Revere would be something that somebody would want to come to Revere for.
Right.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. And actually, you make a good point, and the mayor made a good point about salary range. I've looked at, just because of the raise issue, looked at some other communities that have put wage comparisons or wage studies together. And actually, UMass Boston put one together for a community recently, and it's pretty comprehensive. And they have, what they do is range salaries for all their non-union employees. So there's, you know, the non-union employees do not get any of the incentives, any of the additional incentives, but there are, you know, there are ranges between different steps, depending on how long you've been in a position, depending on your classification coming into the door. So, you know, I think that's maybe something to look forward to down the line in the future for, you know, department heads and for other folks that are going to become or might be non-union. You know, having that expectation up front of what they're going to make, and having it even, and I still like the idea of having it tied to a cost of living or a consumer price index where they're going to be getting a raise, you know, that's based on a cost of living. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Arrigo. The first thing is for the life of me, I cannot vote for these raises. To me, it's overkill. And I think comparing other cities and towns, I don't think justifies anything. I mean, because they give a certain amount to somebody, whether it's a treasurer or anything. Why do we have to go along with the other cities? I mean, other cities might bring in more tax revenue. They have different conditions of what goes on there. Revere is Revere, and I feel that we're representing the taxpayers. We give raises what we can afford. And I do believe in the city solicitor adjusting his salary. And I also believe other departments, which I voted for a 2% raise, I will go along with that, to be fair with all the departments. And again, as far as any additional raises, I think it should go into the Ways and Means Committee and be able to work out something with different department heads to see who's worth what and compare. But as far as other cities and towns, I really don't go for that because every city has different revenues, different type of personnel. They have more personnel than other personnel. They bring in more taxes. They have more commercial development. So I think we should go by what we can afford and be fair with everyone. Give them a raise, but just give it within the means of what we can afford. Right now, we gave out 2%, so stick with the 2%. And I am looking to adjust the city solicitor. He does work hard. He's helped us a lot, so I can go along with that. But that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. George, Mr.
Yeah.
Anzoni.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify some things that were mentioned tonight. One is, first off, as I have asked the mayor to withdraw my raise, so there's no chance that I'm up here talking about a raise. However, there are some things that have been misconstrued, and I want to make clear. One, that it was never said that I didn't receive the 2% raises every year. Whatever percentage raise it was, I did. However, all right, I'm not part of a union, and because I'm not a part of a union, I don't have the right to impact bargaining. Now, when does impact bargaining happen? Impact bargaining happens when you are assigned another duty and you want to be compensated for it. What happened was, as Mayor has said, or Bob has said, Councilor has said, that when in 1992 he appointed me collector treasurer, he gave me $10,000. It was $120,000 for that position. There was one for 60, and there was one for 60. Well, there was a savings of $50,000 a year. Okay, I've worked 20 years since then, so the city saved $1 million. Every day I came to work, the city saved. Every year I came to work, the city saved $50,000 because I came to work. All right. Then, further on in the time, I became the director of finance. At the time, and the then mayor came up and said, "I'm giving him this amount, all right, which was like $9,000. However, he deserves much more, and I will give him. I will look to give him a raise when things got better." So during our discussions, I want to make this clear, is that I said to him, I said, I think I deserve a raise after 3 years. So he said, well, I really can't give you a raise because then I'm going to have to cut back people. So I don't want people to lose their job. And I said, fine, I'll continue the way I'm going. And I did. Well, this is 8-9 years later. And why the base went up is because I haven't been fully compensated for those years as the director of finance. And I don't feel I've been completely for the collector treasurer's position. And now there are more duties put on me, such as union negotiator. I negotiate with all the unions now, and which I'm not complaining about. I enjoy work. I always do my work. I have to say, in the last 35 years I've been here, I've been, and I think Mayor Hess, I served with him. I'm serving with Dan. I think Mayor Ambrosino, God rest his soul, my dear friend George Councillor. Any financial problem that came, I was part of the solution. So I'm not saying that, and I'm not going to go through all my accomplishments or whatever they were, but what I do want to make clear is that this didn't come out of the sky. This came not because I don't want people to think I'm greedy. I don't want to think that the mayor made a mistake in doing this. What happened is that when we talked to a labor attorney, he felt that it was, and who's familiar with the city ordinances, he felt that the only way to do it was, and his advice to us was, to do it through the change of a ordinance. But I do want to make that clear, and this is what happened. So I'll give you an example. I run city auctions. I ran an auction today, all right? In the years that I've been here, before the city-owned land sales were handled by the city council, the law changed, and 5 or 6 years ago I started running city auctions. Today my auction is going to net $715,000 for the city, okay? That's how successful it was. And the reason it's successful and why the auctions come into play is because of the fact when I became collector treasurer, and I think Councillor Haas remember this, we had a $5.2 million deficit when you took over. And I said to Moody's at that time, I said to him, listen, let me go to work, and I asked the mayor for, Councillor Haas for additional resources. He gave them to me, and what happened is that within, I said, look, in 2 years, I'll take that $5.2 million deficit, and I will have it down to zero. Well, I missed my mark by $126,000, and within the next month, I had that $126,000 down. So, looking at it and putting things in place, the reason we could have that auction, because I changed all of the way things are collected. In fact, cities and towns in Massachusetts are actually taking what I do and how I do it, and they're putting it into place in their towns because they realized there was a lot of revenue being lost, but I've been doing it since the day I became collector treasurer. I believe Mayor Haas, Bob Haas, Councillor Haas would say that. So, and agree with that. So, we accomplished those things. And above that, if I was a union employee, I wouldn't have to come here. I'm one of 5 employees in the city that has to come to the mayor and say, I would like a raise, and for these reasons, and have to come before the city council. There's been other people getting raises in the city. Through the years I've been here, there've been people sitting in this council who got special raises as employees to the city. And the point being here is maybe the case, but at the same time, there's myself, the city solicitor, the assistant city solicitor, the city clerk, and I just don't think it's fair. The 5 employees that just shuffle out to the side, and because we can't join unions. When the union came in, I actually said, I'll join it. They said, you can't because of your position, your confidentiality. So what would happen when a union, you have, say, for example, if you had somebody who came in and got another job, I mean, every union here, when they get another job, they get a raise. Everybody does. And they don't do any more work because all of a sudden that's why you have your impact bargaining. I don't have the right to impact bargain. Over those years, I didn't have any right to impact bargain, but that happened in the school, that happens in the police department, that happens in the fire department, happens in the DPW, happens here in City Hall for those people with unions. But for those of us that aren't, we have to stand up here in front of the cameras and say, we would like a raise, but people have to understand what we do. And they should understand the amount of work we do. But I'm saying this again, and I want to remind the councilors that I already asked for my raise to be withdrawn, and I appreciate your consideration for it, each and every one of you. We've always had a great relationship, and we're friends. And Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank you so much for your confidence in me. But however, I just want them to know that, and that's the circumstance, and that's why we're up here. They might have seen the splash in the paper. It's so much money. They must have seen this, but they don't realize. Again, over the last 20 years, I've saved the city $1 million for the last 20 years I came to work. So I don't know any other employee in the city that's done that, but at the same time, I want to thank you for your consideration and thank you for everything, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, George. So what my thinking is, we'll leave it in committee. I will get the mayor, and I'll take input from councilors what they want to see as far as it sounds like, and I have the same appetite for doing something for Paul, for the city solicitor. I do think that he's grossly underpaid, and looking at some of the other communities. Yeah, and I think everyone agrees with that. What I would like to see, because there are so many numbers flying around, I would like to get just numbers from you guys, because I've looked at the old journal payroll information. I've looked at old budgets. I don't and trying to figure out what's what. I think if we get one set, and I can give you the outline for what I have and what I've done myself, and if you guys can fill that in, as far as like what people's base is and what people get for stipends and what kind of stipends they are, and we could look at if we see
that in the budget.
Okay, so and if we could also see what other communities we're talking about. I know
that
there.
comparison we haven't done, but in the budget what we did this year, so that nothing would be hidden.
Just so we know a range for the positions,
We put the person in, the position in, the amount they're making, and then extrapolated across what their final salary is.
Okay.
So that's what we've done.
Okay.
So that way, everybody would see what everybody earns and what they get.
Okay, and I think what we could, and it'll be a discussion that we'll have, I mean, we're going to get the budget hopefully this week or next week, and that's a discussion we can have, it sounds like, during the budget. But I would like to just see numbers that I feel that we can all agree on, because I think that there are just a lot of numbers that have been thrown around the last couple of weeks. And
Yeah, if you want,
Yeah.
I mean, if the goal here is, and I'm not sure I fully understand it,
Yep.
I don't know if we're talking about members that are covered, or employees that are covered under collective bargaining, or if we're just talking about these employees that I'm talking about now.
Just the people who are not under.
So we're talking about these few employees
This-
here,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And your goal may be, and I don't know if this is true, but just for my own clarification, to maybe start a conversation about what would a fair salary be without longevity and without
Yes,
all these other
Yeah.
pieces that the rest of the workforce gets.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, if that's the goal, then a number is a number, so I
Yeah.
mean, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can certainly talk about that. You know, like I say, and I have to believe it's the same goals that the council shares, is we want to treat our employees well. We don't want to see a turnover, or, constantly.
Absolutely.
And even though the economy isn't great, we're going to go through these hills and valleys where the economy is going to be good, and why lose your best employees at that point in
Yep.
time when they've been here for 5 or 10 years,
Yep.
when you can keep them because we pay a fair salary? That's
exactly.
really what, that's my philosophy on it
You want,
anyway.
you want to be able to attract good people.
Right.
Number one, and number two, the people that you do attract who are good, you want to be able to compensate them fairly. And I look at Judge's positions and I worry about when he leaves, because there are probably going to have to be 2 or 3 or 4 full-time positions. I mean, you look at the supervisor of municipal insurance and benefits. That's a personnel director. Effectively. You look at performance-based budgeting.
I'd like to make it.
There are just
something else right
other
there.
things that when George does leave, eventually, there's going to be a lot of institutional knowledge that's gone, and we're going to be a lot less better as a city for that.
Well, and like
and we're
here's
going to have to pay for it. We're going to have
here's
to
the
pay.
thing.
I'd like to make a substitute motion, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion tonight, we rule this unfavorable, okay? The issue, you want to keep it in committee, but I think to make it simplistic, what I believe we should do is kill it and address it with the mayor during the budget. This way, there's nothing on the table, the mayor knows what he's going to do, we can get what you want and do it all at once, instead of keeping items out there just hanging. So I get a substitute motion.
Okay. Roll call. Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Councilor Guanasso. Councilor Haz. Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
No.
And I will vote no. Yeah, Councilor Janino.
If I could just speak on it, my only thought process in this is that this is completely different than the original motion that was put in. So I feel like maybe something completely new needs to be reworded, because now several people are added and moved and changed, and we're talking about something completely different than that was put in a few weeks ago. So maybe after all of the conversations we've had, you can submit something with all of these changes, so we're not backtracking.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Guanasso.
my thought process was very simple. I mean, I think there's a collective agreement here that we're talking about one position now that we're going to review. So we come back with a figure to the mayor and see if that's a viable figure for that position.
I don't have a problem with, but
That's what we're talking about
we've
now.
amended ordinances before. You can take the same ordinance and say, strike this, strike that,
That's
strike
right.
this, and
Right.
we'll make the solicitor this.
So
I don't think you need to.
Debate should be over for the 2 of those positions, and we only have 1 position that we're now talking about, and we're talking about the value of that position.
I just
Okay.
want to see it done right and everyone get what they deserve.
Well, the vote was 3-2, correct?
Passes it on to change the vote,
Oh, it changed. Okay.
correct?
Yeah, because I want it to be somewhat that we've got it narrowed down to now 1 position that we're reviewing, and we're going to come up with a figure that is one that we can all live with and say, but yet justifiable one.
Mr. Chairman, just a note,
Councillor
if I may.
Novoselsky.
If I may. You know, what we're doing here, is we could make a recommendation as a part of this package that was put in.
Okay,
And
let's do that.
what I'm saying is that we put in the recommendation to establish a new base entry-level
I think we're all saying
salary
the same
for the
thing.
city solicitor.
Right,
I
right.
don't want, you know, I honestly don't feel that someone walking in the door should get $150,000 as a CEO for a city. You know, I think they should earn it. I said it before. I know I'm repeating myself, but they should earn it. I really feel strong about it.
CFO.
But the city solicitor should get it.
You're right.
Get the base. Should get the base. I don't care how long
Right.
you've been here, George.
Councillor
I'm talking about
Novoselsky.
someone walking in the door.
Motion to adjourn.
I think we're all on the same page here.
There's no question.
We're all on the same
It's
page.
just the manner in which you get
It's the manner in which we do it. I don't expect us to have any more discussions in committee on this item that we have in front of us.
That's
we
correct.
we will be bringing this up
Limit the debate.
again in the budget. We'll have a discussion about what numbers we want to see from the mayor, and we can bring that up as we go through the budget process. So with that, I hear a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, are we not voting on any part of a ordinance change here? Are we throwing it down the tubes, or?
Well, it's going to
It's
remain
staying
in
in committee.
It's going to
But
remain.
we're going to bring it up in committee again to talk about at least some part of this change. Other than,
yes, yes.
I still want to establish an entry level.
Yes. Yes.
What we do about him later is another thing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with that, this meeting of Ways and Means will be adjourned. Thank you.